Welcome to the Polynation Podcast with your host, Fernando. If you're joining me from TikTok, welcome. I hope you enjoy this longer form of uncovering the great conundrum of the human condition. When I started this off, I was dedicated to meet people with interesting ideas, to uncover topics that interest me, and I believe interest the greater community. So join me for the next hour or so as I speak to a very intelligent, driven young person, Isaiah Fearon. Bodybuilder, content creator, deep thinker, a great person, and now a friend. Join us as we discuss topics such as morality, human nature, the differences between Canada and the United States, fear in media, politics, religion, among other things. Especially how to comport yourself in order to attain the good life. To support me, please like this video, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you'll be updated when I upload new podcasts. Follow me on TikTok at The Polynation, where I post my understandings of the human condition in shorter form, and comment whatever you'd like. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy my conversation with Isaiah. All right, brother. Well, welcome. We've had a couple of conversations, two to be exact, for those listening prior to this. But I wanted to invite Isaiah here formally to be the third guest on my podcast, the Polynation Podcast. Just shoot the shit, find some interesting topics to talk about. I want to get to know him a little bit. I find him very interesting, very inspiring also. So let's just dive into it, bro. I have some cultural questions, just some questions to get to know you a little better, some like existential weird shit too. And then some stuff around fitness. We'll get to that because you got a pump going?
Nah, no pump, bro.
No pump, bro. Shit.
No pump.
There you go.
Just wearing one of these strings, man. These revealing stringers. That's about it.
What time is it in Canada?
Right now, shit. What time is it? It's 10:20 right now. Yeah, 10:20 right now. But it's not too bad, like right now. Actually, I did hit the gym today for a couple hours, so I'm not brain dead, but I'm like
a little tired. Yeah.
Whenever I lift heavy shit, it's just like my whole body, my nervous system just plummets, man. It's pretty funny actually.
Yeah, no, yeah. Especially when you lift heavy. The heavy days get to you can't really do much after that, like cognitively. But
no.
All right. So first question, I just wanted to, since you're Canadian and I'm American, I just wanted to get that like cultural barrier. I want to know kind of what it's like growing up in Canada.
That's a really good question, actually. What's like growing up in Canada? So I'll give you the broad aspect, and I'll give you like specifically to me. I'd say for anybody growing up in Canada, like to some extent, like, and I've been to the States, to some extent, it sounds crazy to say that, but you'll hear the stereotype of like, oh, Canadians are just so nice, they won't be mean to you.
Yeah.
That's not really true, depending on where you go. Like some Canadians, they can just be quite bluntly just dickheads. But and for the most part, like for the most part across the board, Canadians are very nice people. Like I can't even lie. Canadians are very nice people. So to some, like it's one of those things where like that is as a generalization, and it's also true generalization. So every stereotype comes from some amount of truth, and there's definitely some amount of truth to that. Other than that, landscape wise, it's a beautiful country. I think we have the most lakes in the world. And from just the schooling perspective, I don't know. I feel like I learned a lot of important shit. I think we talked about that the other day, but we'll actually posted that. Like, regardless, I think whether you're States or Canada or not, or otherwise, I think for the most part, like at least in North America, like the schooling system is pretty much rigged. So I honestly don't even want to dive into that. I learned a lot of I learned more from friendship experiences on character wise than like I learned from school. Like in terms of actually retaining information. Like I didn't retain a lot of information because you kind of just go through school like oh, y equals mx plus b. Oh, just moving on. I'm like, okay, like how like for some reason, I just wanted to know how can we apply this to life. Like what's the application? And I find myself actually asking teachers like those questions sometimes, like because there's I had those phases where I was like a snarky kid, and I was also like, okay, I had to grow out of that and like actually start learning to get better grades. But yeah, I don't know. For the most part, Canada, in a nutshell, is a good country to live in, uh, especially healthcare wise, people wise. There are some bad apples, but for the most part, it's an overall great place. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Have you ever traveled outside of Canada?
Yes, I have actually. Again, I haven't done a lot of traveling, but like I went to the what do you call it, the Caribbean so far. I went to
Oh
Jamaica
yeah.
a few times, of course, because like I was mixed race, so part of my lineage on my dad's side, there's
Hmm.
I have my grandma down there, a few other relatives as well. So it's not bad down there. I've been to the Bahamas as well, and pretty much the states, and that's it. In the states, I went to Buffalo too, so it wasn't anything crazy. Like I
Buffalo.
haven't traveled down the road south. I haven't been there. I haven't been there yet. But I want like to experience it one of these days. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh shit. Well, the question I kind of wanted to get at with the whole Canada thing is what's kind of like the path that most Canadians take? Because as you know, I'm interested in the mind development and just humans in general, their behaviors, their patterns. And obviously there's differences across like nations, cultures, all that. So I just wanted to know kind of what's like a general path for a young or a male, a Canadian male since like let's say 7 when they're kind of self-aware onto like your age right now, and then further on, like what do they go to school and job, college and job sort of thing, or
I feel
some
like
of the
honestly, it's a very even split. Like if you're to say, okay, like from what I know of like all the kids I've been around, like so the school I went to in high school, it's a Catholic school, but it's not like they weren't that strict. The vice principal, he's a funny guy. He cracked jokes. Like it wasn't like or like if you do anything, you're out. Like no, like kids acted up. Kids were doing drugs on lunch breaks and doing all types of nonsense. Like it's like the typical like, oh hey, we're
yeah,
Catholic, we're cool. Behind closed doors, everyone's on some next shit. So
yeah.
there's a lot of there's definitely a divide. Like we had like there's definitely in that school there's more like higher class kids in terms of like wealth from their parents.
Mm,
So they had a lot of opportunities. A lot of those kids went to college, and I'm even finding now either college, university. I'm even finding now that like a lot of them, from what I see on the internet, they're heavy into the party scene. So a lot of people that go to college because they want to party, and like that's like they don't see it as their purpose. They just go out, go to college, right? And then with people like
okay.
myself who didn't go to college or get a trade, and we're just looking to essentially build our business off the jump. Um, and then or just not build their business, or we have no, some will have no purpose, they just don't want to do anything. There's also those, and then we have like the guys who want to go into trade. So it's pretty even split. I'd say probably 1/3 want to go into college, university, the other third trades, and then lastly just miscellaneous, whatever they want to do, like myself, that don't. If anything, I'd pick the trades over school though, that's for sure. That's for sure.
What's your guys' like drinking age requirement?
Drinking, actually, it's 19. Funny enough, I think it's 21 down
Oh
here,
really?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's 19. In Alberta, you can drive at 14.
Oh shit.
Yeah, yeah, in Alberta, you could drive at 14. But yeah, I think it's 19 across the board. I'm hoping it's not younger for Alberta. That'd be crazy, but it's a lot of hicks that sit out there.
Oh
I
really?
lived there. I lived there for a while as well, actually. It's pretty crazy down there as well. But yeah, no, as you said, like, but like as I said, like, yeah, Canada for the most part, there's good people, but like the ratio, it's not like, oh, like 80/20. It's probably like 60/40. You know what I mean? Or like
Oh shit.
70/30. And not to be like, like not to put myself in like, like everything's bad down here or everything's good. Like it is majority good, but then we do have still have a lot of bad, especially in Toronto. There's a lot of shootings, a lot of, what I mean, a lot of gang banging and whatnot. Everyone wants to be hard as well.
Mm.
And then obviously guys from the states like, oh, you just want to emulate us. Like, no, it's been bad down here for a long time as well. It's just not mainstream. So everyone's like, oh, that's when Toronto they're trying to mimic. No, like if you see it like that gang life affiliation, there are some similarities, but there's always differences depending on where you go. And even in like BC, I'm sure there's a lot of that as well. Just all over the place. Canada isn't always, although we have that stereotype that it's a happy-go-lucky, jolly place. It's not. It isn't always. It isn't always that. And I've seen people do crazy stuff. I fought a crackhead before. I'm just that's just
Yeah.
that's just one instance. It's just there's a lot of crazy stuff that does happen here. But for the most part, if I had to count every single day I've been here, at the very minimum 60-40. And that's not me being an optimist. That's me just being a realist.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't disbelieve you because I 100% believe that you get enough people together, clustered, and this is just a theory, but there's also research on it. I'm just not privy to it. But cities in general, the denser the population, the higher the crime rate, and there's a reason for that. It's like rats. If you leave them alone or scattered, they more or less won't do anything to each other. But you get them in confined spaces, they'll start fucking attacking each other. And humans are kind of the same way, territorial, protective, and violent when it comes to their personal space. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been reading a lot into like the human laws of human nature. I think we're in the second last. He's talking about was it the susceptibility of anger for each humans and how we each express it.
Mm-hmm.
And like we all harbor anger, but it's about how do you channel it, right? Like we all harbor anger at one level or another. If it's not at least daily, at minimum weekly, even if it's microaggressions, passive aggression, whatever it may be, right? So I feel like I can't speak for the states, but in Canada there's a lot of passive and microaggression. But there definitely is aggression, like straightforward. That's more like on the it's more minimal, but like the gang side of things, like like people definitely do get down, but for the most part, like it's a lot of microaggressions just on the day-to-day person. Like no one's gonna be like, you know what, you're a piece of shit. Like
Yeah.
they'll, they'll say something like subliminal, as in like saying you're a piece of shit, but they won't call you a piece of shit straight up. I'm sure like in the one stereotype about like the South of the States is like y'all are just straightforward, y'all don't give two shits, like you just straightforward everything. Which I'm sure for the most part, based off that stereotype, if there's some truth to every stereotype, that's got to be true to some extent. But what do I know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think all stereotypes have some truth to them. That's why
No.
they develop. But yeah, no, it's interesting you say that because it also, if you're in a city in confined spaces, like what's your outlet for aggression other than other people or the person next to you? Or versus if you're like out in the country or at least a little bit more of the houses are spaced out a little more, you have a little bit more privacy or a little bit more like a backyard, for instance, or like just natural areas, parks, mountains, and you can kind of let some of that out just by going for a walk or something like that. Versus in a city, it's like everywhere you go, it's going to be either a little hall, stairs, you're going to run into people in elevators, or the sidewalk, and they're going to be running into people and traffic, and you're constantly on the lookout. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's like there's less potential for an outlet there than there is as you get out of the city. And that's just personally for me. I want to live in a bigger city just to experience it, but I also know that prolonged periods of time in a city makes you that way, sort of. That's why New York is got that rap for, people will spit in your fucking face if you go to Brooklyn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
But
crazy like that.
this leads into a question I wanted to ask you kind of about Canada, and you can
Yeah,
go into as much detail or as little detail as you want, but
sure.
is there anything you could see like right off the bat that needs possibly change either politically, socially, or economically, or something that you've just kind of from your self-awareness as a citizen there saying like, oh, this shouldn't be this way? Like, is there something bad about Canada?
So, like right now, and I don't know a lot of the situation because I don't like to involve myself in politics to a certain extent. I like the general basis of it, but I don't like to deep dive into it because I know my susceptibility of fear, and also I do enough things to intentionally force fear on myself on a day to day basis, so I face them. So I don't want to. I set limits on myself for stress, for fear, for happiness. Everything's a balance, and I try to make sure I I set my limit and I play within it pretty much, because you can't have too much happiness, shouldn't be too sad, you shouldn't be too anxious, but you have to experience all these emotions because you can't run from them, right? But one thing I do know is that in Canada, there's a lot of fear right now in terms of vaccinations, in terms of Justin Trudeau. I'm sure you've heard of him, Prime Minister. He gets a lot of backlash, and I think people spend too much time in their day stressing about the things that he's doing. Although he could be a much better person in terms of the mandates he says and his delivery. Again, I don't know a lot about it, but what I do know is when I do know when I can see a genuine person. He's a very he's a fallacy pretty much the way he says things. I can tell he's a puppet. I can tell he's a puppet behind the scenes. And that's why I was talking to my dad about that the other day. Like, as much as Donald Trump's quite honestly, he's not a blatant racist, but he's blatantly ignorant at the very minimum. Possibly racist, but I don't think he's not like a consistent. He says racist things, but I think he's just generally an ignorant person, in my opinion. But at the same time, like Justin Trudeau, he says nothing. When I look him in the eye from a TV, again, it's hard to read someone's energy from a TV screen. But what I
Right.
can say is this: everything he says, it's scripted. It's not real. It's just like he doesn't really want to help. You know what I mean? But it's just like what's going on in the background, right? Especially even around indigenous issues in the country. They're kind of being they're kind of being confronted. Like, for example, my buddy, right? I want to live with right now, actually. So he's indigenous himself, and he doesn't pay tax, right? So that's just one thing. Like, he pays no tax at all,
Okay.
which is like, okay, that's good. Like, so just those little things, but it's just like the way I see it. If you look back at the history, what would I do? Well, first and foremost, I wouldn't do that out of the own kindness of my heart. But on the other hand, what I would do is reimburse them fully of everything. Like, we've taken their land, right? And even in the States, we've taken the land. It's just like we're not thinking about those things, right? And in Africa, so the land was taken. Like, it's just like how are you going to ethically reimburse them? But money, as you said, money does not become an end for most people. Or money becomes an end for most people, rather, as you said the other day. So it's just like, and when the government and the banks are intertwined like that, how are they just going to be like, you know what? Let's just give them the money back for those years. No, they're not doing. They don't care. They don't care. So that's pretty much as deep as I'll go into it. Anything deeper, because I know what I believe in. I know what I believe in, and I stand on it hard, but I don't go too deep into certain things due to the fact that, you know what, especially in Canada, like through the news is used as a form to make you fearful. Quite honestly. I can't speak for the state's news because I haven't seen it, of course, but the news here, it definitely looks to make you fearful. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I could honestly say it's the exact same fucking thing here, man. With Biden, everybody who
Yeah.
I talk to, unless you're living under a rock or something, you can see right through that person that's
Yeah.
standing there with instructions that are made for like a 5-year-old. So it's a puppet situation. I would like to know very much who's controlling the reins, but it's
Yeah.
the same thing where people, I don't really care what he does because, like I said, like you said, there's no use in spending so much time on what he says or blaming him for policies. It's like you got to protect your own pocket, you got to protect your own people, and you got to protect your own, ethics and morals as a citizen. But so that doesn't matter too much. But there is a lot of fear also in our news system on both sides because our political system is divided left and right and conservative or liberal. And there's very little room in the middle nowadays, or even for any other type of party or any other type of ideology. You're either or you're not non-existent. Basically, they won't talk to you. But it's pretty much the same shit, which is kind of that's why I wanted to start off with this like culture discussion because from what it seems like, it's not really that different. There's gangs here. They're like I'm from Mexico originally. I was born in Mexico, so I can tell you there's gangs there. I can tell you they take a lot of their like you could think they take a lot of their culture from gangs here, but no, there's actually they originated there a lot of them. So it's the same shit everywhere.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to human nature, protecting and tribalism and all of that sort of shit. And what you were mentioning about how to redistribute back to an economy or how to redistribute back to a class that was hurt before. Here we have a similar thing. Well, not so much with the natives anymore, and I'm not too familiar if they're fighting for any of that as of late, but definitely the black community here, that's big right now. Is it talks about reparations, about how to give back to these protected classes
Mm-hmm.
that have been marginalized or previously enslaved, that sort of thing. And it's the same thing. Well, how the fuck are you going to do it? How are you going to
Well,
give it back to them?
I
And
think they're
then,
not. I think they're not going to. First and foremost, I just think it's not going to happen, and that's why I don't spend too much time complaining about anything. Because, like, literally in Canada on a daily basis, even when I go walk to work, even I'm just walking to go do whatever, like daily, I'll see trucks or vans or cars saying "fuck Trudeau" signs. I'm like, you take the time out of your day to do this. Just focus on yourself. It's not going to do anything. You know what I mean? Even the
100%.
protests. I don't know the protest at in Ottawa at the Parliament, which is like basically like the White House of Canada, more or less. So at the Parliament, there are people with their days on end, complaining about well, a lot of the stuff, like in terms of like the vaccination and whatnot. There's like,
Right.
okay, like drop the mandates, drop this, drop that. It went as far as then the I guess it would have been the Mounties. I guess the Mounties is like the police force, but the like advanced police force in Parliament. Don't quote me on this. Anyone's watching, I don't really know shit. All right, but what I do know is this: is that when it comes down to that, like some people are getting beat up because they're going as far as like they're getting aggressive, right? So they're kind of getting there's force. There's definitely force used against them by the police force, like who protect the parliament, of course. Or it must I don't even know it was SWAT. I don't know anything. But all I know is there was force that was pushed upon the people who were protesting, which is pretty crazy to look at. But it's just like, do I blame them? Do I not blame them? It's a double edged sword. Both people are wrong, and that's why personally I just focus on the things I can control. The intangibles, I don't spend time like focusing on them because they're intangible. I can't control them.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I feel like that's what if every human did that, we have a very, very peaceful society. The world in general. Don't focus on things you can't control. Things that you can control, like do your absolute best. Your absolute best. Try your hardest. Get them in control, and then from there, keep going to more micro things, right? But it's very important that well, first and foremost, I think like from the states and Canada and even Mexico, like a lot of the micro in terms of human human nature is very similar. There's not going to be a lot of differences, and even in the world in general. But the macro is definitely very different. Even if we go from states to Canada, like for example, like the legal age to drink, all these things are very different. But you go to the
Hmm.
micro of human behavior and
Yeah.
how I guess how we organize ourselves, it's very, very similar for sure.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. As a human being, as you, as an individual, with your family unit, with your friends, how you choose to live your life. That's what it comes down to. Because we're not at the table. We're not. I used to say this all the time to my friends when they would get riled up at that with those certain things, and we'd have good discussions. But at the end of the day, it's like, do you have a seat at the table where it matters? If you don't, then we're just wasting breath. You know, it's good to idealize and in your head because it's also matters. Politics seeps into everything in our lives, but to have discussions like that, it's almost always leads to nothing because we can't change anything, like personally. So with that, yeah, maybe we'll come back around, circle back to this, but yeah, I'm
Yeah,
glad
because
we touched.
it's a very deep. We go down a rabbit hole with that one.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
So let's go on to some personal questions.
sure. Let's do
Yeah,
it.
about yourself. About so, what kind of environment did you grow up in? Would you say it was an adequate environment, like a subpar environment, and you could speak to that maybe economically or socially or
I
kind
feel
of
like it was adequate for me to grow. It is adequate for me to set a base. When I actually look at the adequacy of other people's lives and what they had as a base, it makes me very grateful. When I'm grateful, I can think more clear. When I can think more clear, I can set my life out better. So based off, first and foremost, me being grateful, because one thing I do, and I talked about my Uber driver today on the way to the gym. He had a vitiligo, and we're talking about just like the little things we can't control. You have to be grateful for them. And again, going back to what we just talked about, control the things you can control. You can't spend time worrying about, oh, poor me, I had this, I had this. Sure, there's some hiccups in my life, a lot of them, but there's a lot of great stuff that a lot of people will never have access to due to their country they're born in, their family situation, their whatever. It doesn't matter. So all I think about is the things I'm grateful for. When I'm grateful, I can think more clear in general. So I guess in a nutshell, like even from birth, like if I were to rate my level of happiness from like general, because I've funny enough, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, depression, all that shit. It was a matter of switching my mindset to be like, this isn't real. This is,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? That's what really made me question the health system and the mental health system in general in Canada. A lot of the therapists are fraud. You know what I mean? All they look to do, they
Mm.
want to pump their money out of you, time out of you, whatever it may be. Spent a lot of time with therapists, but deep down inside, the best therapist I ever had was my dad because he kept it real. He kept it real. He was just like, listen, if you don't get your shit together, you're gonna be 19, which I am now, 20. You're not be well spoken. You're gonna not know how to acquire money. You're not gonna not know how to keep a girlfriend if you so please. You're gonna not know how to do X, Y, Z. Came down to it, I was just like, you know what? One of those days, like light just switched, and then eventually I found the gym, and I started slowly weaning off the things that were bad in my life, looking to be more grateful, and then things happened bad again. Things happened bad again, and the one thing I had to do was look back to gratitude, everything I have to be grateful for, and you have to almost force that on yourself. One thing I always believe in is like the fear of God. And even if you don't believe in God, the fear of Mother Nature will keep you grateful. You know what I mean? Even if you don't believe in God, anybody who out there who doesn't, at least think of it this way: the fear of Mother Nature will keep you grateful. A earthquake can happen anytime. An asteroid come out of nowhere that NASA didn't detect. Anything can happen. You know what I mean?
And
So it's just like, it's so, but doesn't that cause fear? Doesn't that go against everything you're just saying about the government and whatnot? No, because that's unnecessary. Those things, that's up to them to control. Like the higher power, that's something that you literally have zero control over. Like not even a little bit of complaining. You might switch a little bit of mandates here and there, but it's just like no, why?
yeah, I
You
was
know?
telling my sister that the other day. It was about illness and family troubles and all that. And I told her, Frank, one of Jordan Peterson's quotes: "Life is suffering. Life is suffering. So we must grasp and hold on to when it's not suffering,
Yeah,
but we must always prepare for it because it's there." And that's like you're saying, Mother Nature is chaotic and random. And
yeah,
if you believe in the divine, they're gonna fuck you because that's just what it is. You're gonna get fucked somewhere or another. Something's gonna happen to you. So I like what you said about gratitude because little hacks like that. When you feel grateful, you can act better, or you can prepare better, or you can just at
yeah.
least, yeah, acknowledge
And
that there is
also, I feel sorry to cut you off, but I feel like when you don't believe in the divine, whenever something bad come across, you're like, why me? Why me? You know what I mean? But it's just like, no, this every time it comes across now, I'm like, yo, this is for a reason. And like I just trick my brain to say that. Even if deep down inside I'm like, yo, I hate this. My brain is just like, yo, you need this. This is for a reason. I'm like, what's the reason? And then like I have like three like main factors in my brain. I have like the me, my internal spirit. I have the negative and I have the positive. The negative, as I said before, he's my bitch for the most part. Sometimes he creeps up and he tries to fuck with me a little bit, but for the most part, I keep him. I'll keep him suppressed. I keep him at bay because I need him for some instances, right? As Jordan
Mhm.
Peterson talked about, every man should be able to be aggressive, and in certain instances, assertive, dominant, whatever it may be. So you can't just suppress him and be like, I'm gonna be a nice guy, man. I'm not gonna ever be bad. But it's like a double-edged sword because negativity and aggression are like so close, so close but so far at the same time, right? Because aggressive can be a positive thing. Someone's hurting my girlfriend or my mom. Well, what am I going to be? You know what? I'm going to be a nice guy today. Absolutely not. I'm not going to be a nice guy. I'm going to let the demon loose, and then something bad's going to happen, right? To a certain extent, because in this is all these things I think about, which like a lot of people don't think about, but it's like, okay, like how loose can you let him? You know, are you gonna let the fact that your mom's being hurt and try to you're gonna kill the man, or are you gonna put him in a full Nelson or armbar and wait for the police to come? Right? It's just like where how far is too far? So that's something that will be a lifetime mastery for me. And it's just like I don't have time to think about being ungrateful or being sad or being mad. It's just like all those things they'll come and go, but when they do come, how do I channel it in a positive manner? I'm not worried about just like being in that emotion. A lot of people, especially like nowadays, it's like it's a trend to be depressed or to be angry. It's just like I don't have time for that. You know, the only trend for me is to be in serenity. That's the trend, but sometimes the trend will dip down to depression, dip up to anger. But for the most part, the trend is me in serenity, and that's all that I care about. You know what I mean? Doesn't
Yeah.
when I'm in serenity, the people around me will be in serenity. I will I will attract situations that are better for me. Just like the law of attraction really does work that way. And I know that for a fact because every time something bad would happen, something that I didn't want, back in the day, I'd be like, you know what? Like I just deserve this. I'm a piece of shit. I'm a horrible person. Yep, da, da, da. Now I'm like, you know what? This is a new challenge. It's a task to take on. And if you beat this challenge, you grow. And that's the only way you should look at life. Anybody, anybody. And honestly, I think anybody who's truly successful on their own accord would agree with me. You know, even though I'm not there, I'm not there yet in many aspects. As I said again, transmutation is very important. So if I can't be happy for everything I have now, how I truly be happy for everything I have later? Because then you get it and you're like, oh shoot, like this is it. Just be grateful at all times for everything you have. So that's one thing it's a challenge, but I beat the challenge most majority of the time. The percentage I couldn't tell you, but for the majority of the time I do beat the challenge, which is that's key, So
It is key, man. I mean, it's stemming off from the divine, right? It's just it goes back to the moral code, the moral structure that you want to set upon yourself, and as a man, as a person, as anybody, you have to develop that. You have to develop your mode of operation for adversity, for success, for basic tasks, for learning how to fucking change a tire on a car. Any little thing, like you could either ask for help or be a little bitch about it and not want to learn and just be a bum. Like you said, there's people that just choose that route, or you can choose into the intellectual path, which is to figure it the fuck out. And sorry, this thing is telling me that the meeting's gonna end for some reason.
Yeah, it says like 6 minutes left. And I guess you could segment it. It says 6 minutes.
It says upgrade to pro or your meeting will end.
Wow. That doesn't make sense.
Okay, I just upgraded it. Fuck it.
So you're like, whatever.
I don't want to stop, bro. All right. Yeah, that threw me off a little bit. I apologize. This guy, I guess I had a pro version. I didn't even know, like a little trial. Yeah.
I was looking at that the other day, just for meetings for the future. I'm like, shit, what are the best meeting apps in general? So I just looked into it, and Zoom was on there. So I'm like, all right, never mind. Let me not look too far into it. I have what I have right in front of me. So.
Yeah, no, it works well. It works well, especially for this type of thing. And then if you add a webcam and a little microphone to make it better, it's obviously a little better. But anyways, that was going to be my next question. Actually, are you a religious person, or if not, if there's some sort of moral code?
I mean, yes, moral code. It's very deep for me, right? Because when it comes to the matter of Christ, right? The actual stories within the Bible, some of them I feel are inaccurate. Others, you can learn a lot from them, right? So, my most important thing, and what I've realized, is that it's not about do you go to church on Sunday. It's less about if you're going to church on Sunday and if you're doing your prayers. It's more about how you treat other people and how you treat yourself. Like truly, like all those things are important for discipline and the law of attraction as well. There's nothing better than action, you know. So,
Yeah.
although those things honestly, I'd like to improve. I like to improve them. Church, again, church is very misconstrued. So I honestly don't think that's one of those things that, because a lot of Christians would be like, oh, you must go, you got to go, you got to go to church. You're not going to church, you're not truly Christian, right? It's like, okay, then I guess I'm not Christian, but I do believe in God. That's for damn sure. Like, in terms of there being a higher power, a sentient being that is non-tangible, but
Mhm.
it lives within each and every living being, even animals. It makes me think that, and I really highly encourage you to listen to the what was it, Outwitting the Devil, because that gave me a lot of just insight. That's by Napoleon Hill. If you listened to that one yet?
Mm. Mm-mm.
You have to. That will give you like some crazy insight. Like when you get off this, or like whenever, like, you have to listen to that right away, because when I learned that, it's just like it makes you think about certain things. Okay, what is sin? Sin is a lot of, it's not about lust. It's about indulgence. It's about overindulgence. It's about respect. Like all those things. It's just like if you're not chasing that, inherently the devil catches up to you. And one guy on TikTok as well that I follow is Pro Longevity Fitness. His whole scheme is about outrunning the devil. Like he does daily runs. Like he runs like 20 miles, 15 miles, like 30 miles, 50. Like I'm just like all absurd things. But he does it because it's hard. It's difficult.
Mm.
He increases the difficulty, so the devil can't catch him. It's not going to. He's used to pain, because the devil wants to inflict pain on you. When you're used to pain, when you embrace the pain, you know the pain helps you grow for a better purpose. It becomes second nature, and I feel like that's the whole essence of like what God will want you to do. You have
Yeah.
to be close to Him. You have to put yourself on that crucifix. Take the pins through your forearms. Hang there for a day. If you can't do that, and that's an extreme example, but if you can't do anything that's hard, how are you worthy of blessings? So when
Mm.
it comes down to the aspect of Christianity and reading the Bible on the Sunday, going to Sunday school, I wasn't really indoctrinated into all that, you know. But what I am indoctrinated is to the spiritual side of myself, and the fact that God is real. And okay, to say His name is Jehovah, it's just like all these things, right? It's just like, luckily enough for me, I've had enough bad things happen to me where I'm spiritually attuned enough to where I'd be like, okay, this isn't about crystals and nonsense like that. Oh, the crystal is gonna protect me. No, my actions are gonna protect me. And a lot of people think I'm crazy. A lot of people will like, they'll turn a blind eye to me because, yo, you're crazy. But then they'll go listen to the person who has the protective crystals. No, 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 no,
Yeah.
no, no. It's just like, but you know what? That makes me feel very happy, because that makes me actually know that and in one way or another, I'm a different breed, because like the buddy I live with right now is the first person I actually like found that's truly spirit, besides yourself, who's truly spiritual, tapped in with himself, and understands himself, and reciprocates the energy. So it made me think. I've been through a lot of bad things before I met him. It's just like, here's another blessing. Here you go. And it's just like, it's so easy just to see past the blessing if you're not in a mindset of gratitude. And that's why, again, I keep going back to gratitude, because like, you have to be grateful in the most worst situations, because it makes those good times, which could be perceived as bad, just feel like serenity, peace. Like even right now, I feel like I'm in a state of serenity just talking to you. Have the ability to have this conversation, the ability to have some high tech computer, which that wasn't even a word that's at one point or another, that I can talk to someone in a whole other state. You just have to email people, or travel abroad. Like it's like you like now you can do those things. It's like how are you not going to be grateful? You know, but I don't have the time to tell the delusional and the mad to be grateful. I just have time to anyone who comes in my space and doesn't want to hear me, no worries. You know, best of luck to you. But at the same time, certain things I just know better, and there comes a fine line, right, where you can be too humble, right? You should be like, oh, like I don't know it all. I don't know it all, but there's a lot of things that I do know that grown ass men don't know, grown ass women don't know, kids should know, etc., etc. And I have a lot more to learn, an excessive amount, and that's a little bit of humble right there, because it's important that you keep it real with yourself. Like when it comes to, I know how to act, but I just don't always do it. And that's the like people who don't know how to act, they're at a major disadvantage, because they just don't know any better. And like
Yeah.
they may be in for some eternal suffering. Why did I get the blessings of, having a dad who was very tapped in, wanted us to be very motivated, wanted us to embrace pain, me and my brothers. I'm very grateful for that. I can't not be grateful for that, because I look at other people, I'm like, yo, they didn't have a dad. You know what I mean? I like, and it's just like, but then again, there's other people who didn't have a dad. They learned lessons from it.
Yeah, I want to go
I,
back to that. Sorry, I mean to cut you off.
no
I want to
worries.
go back to that,
I was on a tangent.
before I lose that thought, because it's well, obviously I'm going to listen to that. Is outwitting or outrunning the devil?
Outwitting the devil. So
Outwitting.
It's
Okay.
all about a mental and spiritual being. And now you really see where I'm at, because, as I said, like, for a lot of people, it's God is a discipline for a lot of people. Like, in terms of, okay, going to church on Sunday, reading the Bible, and the good thing about them is that in one way or another, like, those people, in some instances, they can be sheep because they don't understand the financial aspect of life, the spiritual aspect of life, but they're disciplined, so they're still good people. So that is always going to be better, even if the church says some somehow
Some
misconstrued
others,
things.
yeah. So
That's going to be better than like a drug dealer, or
yeah,
the
yeah.
rapper,
Because eventually, so here's another thought for you, because
yeah.
and this one's actually a combination of what outwitting the devil, that dude from YouTube that runs it, does challenging things. And my father used to say to me, and I was also raised Catholic, he would tell me, don't believe in hell or heaven, because both of those exist here.
Yes.
You receive those while you're alive.
Yeah.
So on the topic of outrunning or outwitting the devil and doing challenging things, obviously this is propagated now a little more, and I'm glad for it, because there's now a culture that understands, or at least thinks about, the harder things you try to, or the harder the things you try to do, or the more challenging tasks you undertake, the better your life will become after. And this could be spiritual, it could be divine, but it could also be very practical, and it could also be very, like, human. To say, a bum who chooses the unworthy life from the get-go, that person might develop a disease in a decade, 2 decades, might become overweight, might develop financial troubles because they weren't necessarily, adept in business or education, or trying, even to do any of those things. So they're going to develop a prolonged period of time later in life where they're just going to suffer. And that could be attuned to basically what you're saying. It comes to them. Burning in hell comes to them. But to what my fathers used to say, it comes to them in life, because it comes to them in this life. So if you choose the unworthy path, you're gonna burn in life. It's gonna come back to bite you in the ass. The devil will win, but it will happen here. So no matter if you're religious or not, understanding that from a practical standpoint, developing skills monetarily, intellectually, becoming a good problem solver, that's never going to hurt you. That's only going to put you in positions where you could either help somebody, and then that person will be grateful, and that gratitude will spread onto you. And like you're saying, states of gratitude are better than states of misfortune, or why me. And for yourself as well, if you develop, monetarily, you develop a source of wealth, then you're able to give that wealth. And giving is a tremendous source of happiness. Like, it's been proven, the more you provide service to others for the sake of doing service to another person, that rises dopamine to levels that are unmatched, or at least matched by potent drugs. If you do something good for somebody, you're going to feel amazing. Especially if that person,
100%. And I feel like that comes from the fact of, like if you've been in a bad spot before, like, you know what, a handout would be nice. You know what I'm saying? Like, in a way, but like, at the same time, you're not looking for it. Like, I've always been like a very hard-headed person. Like, I'm not looking for a handout. But if someone came to me with genuine energy and sincerity, and like, you need this, If my one life mission is to give you this, then what am I going to be like? Oh, no. Because the sincerity is just too there. it's just too apparent, you know. So like you learn from that situation, and you're just like, okay, like let me just try this out. Like for me, it's always helping people with honestly gym tips, you know, right?
Mhm.
And the first thing I start off with is okay, I have great genetics. Let's get that out of the way. But I work very hard. So I say regardless, even if I didn't have great genetics, I would still have something of a similar physique due to the fact I worked hard. So now I teach them how to work hard. I teach them the knowledge of how to exercise well, and all while doing it, we have fun, you know. And that's the most important part, you know, because and again, there are times where like on my when I'm personally training, I do have fun, and there are the times where I don't have fun because I'm really trying to build my body. It's just pain, just straight pain. My muscles are in pain after if I'm not stretching for 30 minutes, I'm feeling the pain for 2 more days. Hard to walk on leg day. It's just like, but now I look at that, I'm like, that's easy. You know what I mean? For another person, that's like, no. I'm not doing that. Right?
Yeah.
The things that used to be hard to me are like I'm now making them easy. I'm trying to get to that next level. Like a few things I do now is meditation is a very hard one for me because it's like that's like a thing that's been around for like a millennium, like a very long time. People have always been meditating because they know it puts you in a state of zen. So it's just like the more I control my environment, the more I control my actions, the easier meditation is, and it's like a reciprocating effect. But on the other end, like cold showers. Every time I do a cold shower, I'm like, bro, why this again, man? But I do that on purpose because it's a good thing. Because once I adapt to it, I'm like, okay, this is why. This is actually good. You know, it feels good on my skin. I feel relaxed. It almost feels like it's so cold. It almost feels hot. Just very interesting. You know, and then after I come out the shower and I just feel like refreshed, right?
Hmm.
And I'm done that. When it comes to my workouts, now that's something that's just like my life. So I see it as something that's honestly just a fun activity to do. But for vast majority of human beings, it's something if the discipline of what I do, or even pro bodybuilders, whatever it may be, pro powerlifters, they'd be like, yo, this is ridiculous. I'm not training for this. It's not worth it, you know?
Hmm.
They'll never see the other side though, because it's not worth it to them, right? So yeah, and it's funny that you said that as well about the like what your dad said because like hell on earth because in the ebook they actually say that, you know, they say
Mm.
it's funny because it's actually like two in the ebook is two people. It's like one is like the earthbound human being, and the next is the devil. And he's like the devil. I'm gonna say this one teaser. He says, so he essentially saying to the earthbound man asks him, oh, like, what do you look like? And he's saying, oh, I have no physical appearance. And this is the thing.
Mm.
This is why from a lot of people get misconstrued. And I don't like to dive too deep into Christianity because there's so many different facets of it. The one thing I do know is a moral compass. A truly good moral compass is what you have to chase. Because at least
Hmm.
that way, if there is heaven and hell at the end of the day, there's like how could you go to hell? Because if you're not a hell on earth, how why would you go to hell afterwards? That's just a little theory of mine. Because regardless, logically it doesn't make sense. Like we really don't know because that's past what anyone knows. We don't know life after death. We have
Hmm.
no clue, you know, because we're not able to
Yeah.
contact those people. I'm again my only logical explanation until I get there is you you become you become energy of the universe essentially. So your consciousness is gone, but your energy gets added back into the universe. You know that's the only way I can make sense of it. Quite honestly, you know, to say heaven and hell, all I know is, well, as I said, there's heaven and hell on earth. So I'm gonna try to make it heaven for me. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, what? Yeah, that was my follow-up question. So, what is your idea of a life well lived?
A life well lived. So in my in my in my mind, you know, like morally what I believe is that when it comes to your life having a well-lived one, you have to chase your purpose. That's a very subjective thing. What is your purpose? It's important that one thing I realized, it's easier to find my purpose and be within it. The less I listen to, as you said, people that are like who are one of your videos, people who are older than you, don't listen to like take in what they say with a grain of salt for the most part, you know? And while you're doing that, really learn to master yourself because one thing I also do believe in is there's a way to you trust your heart. Like this is a very good analogy that I highly believe in now ever since I heard it. You can either trust your heart, your mind, or your spirit, which is like your gut essentially. So when you trust your heart, it's just based off emotion. So you're definitely going to like the outcome is more like it's highly likely to be bad. You base it off your mind. It's too logical, so it's just like 1 + 1 = 2. But life throws variables at you. But when you follow your purpose, it's like although the path might be here and you don't know what's ahead of you, you find it very easy to just like your conscious just like walks for you because you have a strong consciousness. But when you have weak consciousness, you don't know where to go to. You're like, oh, should I take like keep going forward? Do I just stop? Like So it's important. That's why I do things like I meditate. I do cold showers because, and it's a weird one, and it's gonna be some deep shit. But when you do the hard things, it brings you closer to God, and God will guide you. So I feel like that is, in essence, the purpose of life to be quite honest with you, because if you don't have the ability to go through hard things, then why would someone, even if it's a mentor, if someone sees that you're weak, why would they want to guide you? You're a
Hmm.
hindrance. You're a hindrance to them, to their kingdom, to whatever they believe in. So
Yeah,
now
it's
with
like
the idea of God. Sorry,
it's
one
like
thing I
in real
go ahead, go ahead.
it's like in real life, right? If you're trying to help somebody that's not trying to help themselves, at a certain point you hit a wall and you don't want to help them anymore because
Hmm.
you're like, fuck you, you're wasting my energy and you don't even want to expend any energy on yourself. So fuck, like it's over that relationship. So yeah, it makes sense. You disconnect from God or your spirit, whatever you believe in, because there's folks that believe that we are God, right? And the more we attune into ourselves and the closer we are to God, which is us. But similarly, if you far fall off too uh, fall off too far astray from the path that your spirit is trying to guide you to, or God is trying to guide you to, then it compounds on itself. And
Hmm.
you might be lost for a decade. You might be lost for 20 years or 30 years. And we see this with drug addiction, criminal life, and like some people. I was talking to some dude who was in his 70s and he was barely turning his life around after being in prison for most of his life from a life of crime. And and it was nice talking to him. Don't get me wrong, but I was thinking like, fuck, that's a long fucking time. But I'm glad he recovered, right? But there's something to be said about being attuned to that earlier on, where like we were talking before, yes, life is long, but it's still very short in the grand scheme of things. So you want to take full advantage of it while you can. And following your purpose, or at least trying to approximate a purpose, a moral code, everything within yourself is a good way to do that when you're younger, because the more you practice it, the less you will fall off the path. At least I think that, and I think maybe you
I
think that as
agree.
well.
I agree. But one thing I say is like I don't feel like we are God, but I feel like we can have God-like tendencies, as in like
Hmm.
the closest thing that I've realized that is very God-like is the ability to read the energy of other human beings. And people be like, yo, you can't read energy. It's just like I've read people's skepticism, like no words, no actions were said, but obviously like through facial expressions, hand gestures, all those things. It's just like taking a lot of time to get to this point, and I have a lot more to learn. So I'm almost like on the other side, like what's next? Because like I've been in rooms with
Hmm.
people where I'm like, I know they're angry, I know they're resentful,
Hmm.
and it's also on the other hand, I've had to learn how to mask my own, or just compress it, or let it fade off. So it's very much like energy is very real. Humans, we all have our own solar energy. We can emit solar energy, literally. We all have electricity within us. So it's just like that's the science of it. But then like the what's past it, the subliminal, you know, like within the sublime, we have the ability to read the emotions of other human beings, the state of mind they're in, make a conclusion. My girlfriend today, anything she thinks, I know what she's thinking. And it's a huge advantage today. It's a huge advantage because I've known her for quite a while now. Not only that, but like she's in a bad mood, I know it. She's in a good mood, I know it. So not only that, but it actually teaches her to be like, okay, I have to master my emotions, even if she wants to mask it, as long as I'm still ahead. And that's the importance of like that's the importance of as a guy, like always being mentally, physically, spiritually ahead of your girl because she's learning from you, right? and even I know I'm young saying this, like anyone can take it how they want it. If any married couples gonna know it's true, that like that's lasted. That's lasted. Let me put that in there. That as long as that man is continually teaching his wife, his spouse, his girlfriend things that are of true value, and he knows they're of value for a fact, and they would be in a value of God's eyes, then he will keep doing it, and she'll keep listening. The ability to read, I can. The closer you are to me, the easier it is for me to read you, and the less attuned you are spiritually within yourself and knowing yourself, the easier it is for me to read you. If I don't know you at first time meeting you, and you're like you've mastered yourself or anywhere near or even like 70% of it, and you're a grown ass man or woman or otherwise, it will be harder. You know what I mean? But just the fact that I know that's a thing, and some people are like, nah, you can't read energy. What is this? Like, what are we in? You know, this is
So you
real
think
life. This is
the
real life.
so you think the less self-aware somebody is, the less self like about their spirituality, about their emotions, their EQ, essentially, the less they have that, the more you can read them, or the quicker you
100%,
can.
100%. Because like, think of it this way: it's like a sixth sense. The lower their sixth sense is, the easier it is for me to activate mine and push it onto them more or less, you know. Cause and that's also comes from the ability to know myself. Every action I do, every urge I have, like I feel like still right now, luckily enough for me, I'm at least 85% in control. Like in terms like again, everything you do in a day is not conscious, but 85% in control in terms of positivity. Like if it's negative and I'm doing it, like if something's negative, I know it's negative. I question it every single time. Like once you're not questioning it, that's a problem. Because like that means like though again, that's like drug addicts, all those things. Like you're going down the path of the devil now. You know what I mean? You have no control. He's controlling you now. He's an entity. You're not controlling yourself. And
That's what Ray Dalio
either
said.
way,
If you worry, you don't need to worry. But if you don't worry, you need to worry. Because if you worry, essentially you're already thinking about it. You're already thinking ahead about it. But if you're not worried, you have a blind spot. Yeah. Well, that was actually it feeds off into my next question, and that is, what is your relationship, if any relationship, to your ego?
to my ego, man, I'm still working on that motherfucker, bro. I'm still working on him, you know. He's a bitch. He's a pain in the ass because a lot of times he's very apparent. And luckily enough, as I said, the conscious, I read him every time he comes up, and I'm like, why did you have to come up? Why did you have to think that? Why did you have to act on that? It's my ego usually comes in the form of thought now, but as a kid, like 16, 17, you came in the form of action like daily. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm the
Mm.
shit. Like, ain't nobody can do this, that. But now I had to, after some very humbling experiences, I had to kill him. I had to kill him off. But now, as you know, ego is one of those things. It's a negative thing, right? It's connected to the negative portion of the mind, the spirit, whatever. It's important that that guy, you have to master him. Will he ever fully go away? I don't think so. I feel like you have to have some amount of ego. Life's all about balance. If you don't have any ego, then you're too humble. If you're too humble, you don't have any ego. It's just like it really is a balance in that manner because let's talk about just like being cocky in general. That's like I think that's extreme egotism, you know, being cocky, being full of yourself. And then ultimately you have something humbling around the corner, right? But then when you're too humble, you have a situation where something of extreme egotism will be needed. You know, people think like, for example, I've gotten better at reading people's facial expressions in terms of like conceitedness or what's the word I'm looking for. I guess they feel that they're better, right? I better get better at reading their ego. So that's one thing. Like this face, like you know, people do that little side smirk, you know, with
No.
their eye like that.
Yeah.
I've gotten better at being like, you know what, that's one of those things where it's just like we want people to think they're egotistical, go do that face, you know? Just little things like that. So in my mind, he's very apparent, but I don't act like it. That's the importance of it because I go to war with my mind every day. But a lot of things that used to happen, they don't happen anymore, luckily enough for me. because again, I'm growing into more of a man now. I'm getting older, so it's important that the world doesn't see you as a kid no more. So it's just like you can't just act out of ego. You can't act out of anger. You can't act out of vengeance. Those things, right? So I'm very aware of those things now. I have mastery. I will never say mastery until I know it's mastery. That's the one thing I know. It's
Mhm.
not mastery. It couldn't be. I've only started trying to calculate how to dismantle your ego. But also, I do know that you need a little bit of ego because you can't be, for lack of a better word, a wimp or a pussy or whatever you want to call it. You just can't, right? Like, if someone's hurting someone I love, like you have to have some amount of ego to that person. Some of just being a protector, but it's just like all these things play hand in hand. It's like you can't have one and not have the other. It's just about a balance. It's about knowing when and why. It's very important to dissect the situation and decipher whether or not you need X emotion at any given time. And that's one thing I'm just really, once I can master that, like if I can master that, honestly, I can master life. That's harder than acquiring money. That's harder than building a good physique. That's harder than, really mastering yourself and these those emotions within the sublime of the universe that are untangible. If you can master those, it's a lot easier to master finances and all those other things because you know when to have this emotion at this time.
Mhm.
It's like math, but so you know when you see this equation, you need this, and that's kind of how I try to go about it with my ego, with being humble, vengeance, just any action that's either positive or negative. I really try to apply it at the right time. I wish I've gotten significantly better at, but I think it's a thing that most people they don't even know they have to do, which is a problem. Yeah.
Huge problem. Yeah. Yeah. Actually,
So
some of
quite
the
honestly, it's getting relatively late. So even if it's like 11, like like it was like 7:18 for you, 7:18 right now.
it's 8:18.
Eight.
Yeah.
Oh, you're 2 hours behind. Oh shit, that's crazy. So I guess I got it wrong. But if we could do like 20 more minutes, I'm gonna have to max out after that. Let's do
All
two
right. Yeah.
hours.
No, for sure. Um. Yeah, because it's late, bro. I don't want to take most all your
Or
night.
even if you could just like I could summarize relatively quicker with the questions and whatnot and just bang 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 them out. Whatever
There's
you
just
prefer.
a few more. Yeah, and
All right, bet.
the rest were gonna be related to fitness, but we could just skip all of that. Maybe do it another time. But
Yeah, for sure. That's cool.
so then I'll just ask you possibly just the two more questions.
All right.
One kind of feeds off of the ego one, and that's do you think a world can exist without evil?
Nah, I don't think so. I feel like that's the idea of a utopia, and unfortunately, in the real world, there is no utopia. You know, like it's an idea. Like I feel like there can be utopian societies, but a world, entire planet, no, I don't think so. At least for the perceived level of consciousness that humans have acquired, no, definitely not. Um, I think the only utopia on planet Earth, besides actual utopian societies, which like take time to work on, and even then you have, I'm sure they have outliers who do negative things. No one's perfect. We're all human, right? Is in nature. Nature, I feel like nature is very utopian. Even when because everything's it's not out of emotion per se. It's out of hunger, or it's out of
Mm.
love. Because like think about it, the lion who wants to kill the pig or whatever, they're not doing it out of I hate it. They're doing it out of hunger. So they don't have the same access to the level of consciousness we have. So even evil for them is like they don't even see it as evil. It's just that's what I'm saying. Like God controls that aspect of that. I truly feel like He does even in outwitting the devil. Like they say this that like the devil doesn't really have control over nature. He just has control over humans. And that's his way to stay intact.
Interesting.
Because and it's very interesting to think about that as well. Because like I will say that God created the world in 7 days, and it's just like I really don't feel like nature can be attuned with the devil because it's just a really truly beautiful thing to look at. You see the tenacity of a lion, the how humble an elephant is, you know, how silent and stealthy a Black Panther is, you know, whatever it is, all these things are just fly. I'm gonna kill him eventually. But you see all these things that
seem
nature
perfect.
has,
Yeah.
that nature has, but humans won't ever have. At least in our bodies, we can create it, but we can't ever be it. The strength of certain animals, the speed of certain animals, these are superhuman, like Herculean, like powers.
They seem to have achieved mastery at what they were designed to do, and
yes, you know what I mean.
And humans have a long way to go for that.
Yeah.
But anyways,
an eagle. An eagle can fly, like things that we can't even do, man.
Yeah,
like,
we can mimic it. Yeah, but it's not perfect. Planes crash, pilots fucking go psycho. But anyways, finishing remarks. Last question is: any advice you would have to a young person listening?
My one piece of advice, and most important, would be follow what you're passionate about. Don't let whatever you're passionate about, don't let anybody kill that for you. You know, because your passion can lead to your purpose. As long as it's something positive. If you're passionate about dealing drugs, then you gotta have to find another passion. You're passionate about like, you know, if you're passionate about watching Netflix, you should probably find something new to do. As long as you're passionate about something that could potentially bring value to other people and value to your own life, like truly bring value to your life, like mentally, you see the benefit of it. There's scientific evidence behind that you'll get benefit from it. Do something that is positively beneficial. Let's put it that way. Anything other than that, I can't say do it. You know, I can't say do something that's negative. Even if you're passionate about it, you definitely should not, because it will lead you down a horrible path in life. It will attract negativity, which I've done myself, and you don't want to be there. You know, all you want is to be in a constant state of serenity. But when those bad emotions do come up, you're used to them, because although you're in that serenity, it's like put yourself in the state of pain. So when the pain comes around, you're already used to it. But as I wrote in my journal the other day, I want to chase positive stress as opposed to negative stress, because negative stress is baby food. You know what I mean? And our like argument, dismantle argument. But once you're used to the positive stress of lifting heavy weights, you know, going on runs where your heart hurts the cardio so bad, you know, like just doing things that are painful but beneficial in the end. The things that are truly like, as David Goggins said, he's training for the day he gets the call that his mom died. So am I. You know what I mean? Like my mom dies, like I don't want to be heartbroken to the point where I start drinking. Like, no, was that what she would want? You have to make sure you're acting out of logic. That's the most important part, you know. But
train hard enough to be prepared for hell on earth, and develop yourself enough to be attuned and recognize when heaven on earth happens.
That's pretty much it, because it does happen. You gotta be grateful for it, prepared for it.
All right, brother. All right, brother. Well, I appreciate it, man. This was awesome.
For sure, bro.
Yeah.
In terms of the fitness questions and whatnot, if you want to write more, like we can just do like something around the same amount of time we did today, and just work off of that pretty much. But
yeah, we could do a whole separate one if you'd like for that one. That way you can get some content off of that too for yourself, because there are going to be questions, you know, fitness questions. So, but all right, brother, we'll schedule for another time. It was great.
Word up.
And I appreciate it again.
You have a good night, bro. I got a lot of insight from that. Those are really good questions, honestly. Really good questions.
Yeah. Thanks for your time, brother.
We'll keep in touch, man.
Keep in touch.